kindnesses or the lack of love wave that we see. But I do believe so. And I'll tell you, my mom and I have done this rodeo before. I have had past lifetimes. And most people, when they go to a past lifetime, their family members will show up. Sometimes the family member is your worst enemy. Um, I had a past life regression myself, and day beforehand, I saw somebody who night before I just wound up thinking about somebody I hadn't thought of in 30 years, and sure enough, they showed up in my past life regression. And while in this lifetime they had been a really good friend, in that lifetime they were my total enemy. Right?
Right.
These people, even you have a cranky grandpa, maybe he's there to teach you something, right?
Right.
Mine was a little bit cranky, but there was definitely something to teach. And when I do my pyramid, he's one of the people that I bring in because he taught me more than the other grandparents, even though he was a bit crotchety, So always when you do this, don't take in, well, I chose my mom, therefore I must suffer. No, what you want, and that doesn't mean push back. They've got karma too. We all have to work this out, and hopefully you live this lifetime, right? I think you can, at least to a large degree.
Well, I have somebody I'd like to bring in now. We have Kim Carey with us.
Kim Carey!
Come on in, Kim.
Kim Carey! Love wave! Love wave!
Kim, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you for asking me. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to see these two as well, Dave and John. And yeah, it's great to see you guys.
I was just bragging on you, Kim. So.
For you, John, again.
I know. It's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying?
You're just like the epitome of love. You are just such an incredible example of love. And that was why I wanted you so much to be involved in this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's really sweet. I do love. I think most people do, especially this day and age. So I'm happy to be here and be a part of this.
So when did you start getting involved in this type of work? I know my mom and I started watching you a few years ago when you were on the couch.
Yeah. And Marcie, where are you from again?
New England.
Oh, I detect an accent.
Yeah. Your cousin from Boston. I get that all the time.
I love it. So I am I was raised Mormon in the Mormon Church. And so I always had a very, I always felt a real connection with God, with Jesus. I've always kind of felt connected that way. I prayed a lot. So I was raised with quote unquote religion. In 2008, there seemed to be a big shift as far as I was concerned in the church, kind of getting involved in the whole question of gay marriage and some different things that just didn't sit really well with me. And I kind of was one foot in, one foot out at that point in the church. And it just kind of, I decided to leave the church. And that's when everything opened up. I think organized religion has a place for sure, because I think it can be a good little stepping stone or a good starting place. It's a good introduction, I think, to the divine. But it is very limited, and I don't mean to hurt. I think if you're in a religion, that's great. It's good for you. But it is kind of, there are four corners to it, and it kind of keeps you in a box. And once I was able to, when I left the church, it was kind of the first time I was able to kind of think, what do I think? What do I think happens? What do I think? It wasn't told to me, or given to me. I could choose for myself, and I kind of surprised myself with the answers that I thought. All of a sudden I thought, you know what? Reincarnation makes sense to me. And that's not a church thing. That's not a Mormon Church thing. But the more I understood it, the more I understood why reincarnation happens. It resonated with me. And I think that that's part of it, is that when we say resonated, it's literally resonating with you. It's the vibration and the vibration meeting, and it's comfortable for you. There's something in it that you kind of gravitate to. And I think when I was younger, the church resonated with me, and that's where I was. And as I moved out and kind of opened up, I would find other things that really resonated with me, and it changed everything. And then I had a big kind of a major event at a silent retreat where I really had kind of a breakthrough. And it was with I was looking at Dawn, it was with a Jesus. It was with a question that I asked Jesus, and I got an answer. Yeah, they're right behind you. I got an answer. That guy. And it took me 4 days of meditation and prayer. But I really felt like I need to hear from Jesus. That's who I need to hear from. And I did. The last day of the retreat, I did get that answer, and it kind of it changed something. And so it was kind of a breakthrough experience. I consider like a kind of a breakthrough experience. Mm. And it really opened up my psychic side, and all of a sudden I could hear my guides really well. It was just kind of opened me up in a way that was really weird. And then not to say it's weird, but it was really weird. And then I started getting the messages about the country, and I started getting this repeated vision of King Kong, and this idea that, Trump would be gone. And this was all, we were supposed to see this. It was for our understanding. We were supposed to gain something from it. And all these things. And then starting the channel, probably like you guys, I got this, go get on and tell people, because it will help them. It will help them understand what's going on. And we will give you little predictions along the way, so they know the big prediction is true. And so that's exactly what I did. I just kind of listened, and I said, my part of the deal was, if I will keep doing this. If I get to like 100 subscribers, I will keep doing this. But otherwise, I'm out, because I am totally uncomfortable with this. And since then, I really feel like this has been out of my hands. I really just kind of listen and go with the flow, because I don't know where this is going. I didn't know last year or the year before that where it would go the next year. So I'm still in that. I think the biggest message for me through this whole thing is trust. Trust. Yes. And it definitely is a roller coaster, because we're human beings. So we go through periods of feeling down or feeling disconnected, feeling more connected, and so, but that idea of trust and trusting the divine has been a steadier for me. Right. That's really where it begins and ends for me.
And trust is developed by results over time. So I'm sure as you started getting information, your trust started to grow, and your intuitive nature got probably a little easier as you went along, right?
It does, except that, it absolutely, that's absolutely true. And then you have the bad day as a reader, or you have a bad day, right? And so, and then you rebuild that, and then you have to sink in, because you do have those moments where you're like, what am I even doing? Why am I even doing this? Just
amen, sister. Amen.
Real with people, because that is how you feel sometimes. We're human. We're human, and we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have a bad day, and everything else, but that is where it always comes back to that. You just need to trust.
Yeah.
Just
I remember watching your very early videos, and I was just always struck by how humble you were. You were like, well, if I'm wrong, or you're like, it was like, so you tell me, I don't know. And I was like, I like this person a lot, because she's not all bloated in her head about, what she's doing. And she's making it a community more so than about herself, and I love that. I love
Oh,
that.
thank you. And I don't know how somebody, I know there are people that have, really big egos that get it, but I'm like, how can you? Because you're always put in your place. In a week later, you feel like you're, woo, it's all going great. And then a week later, you're like, oh, why am I doing this? It really is that kind of roller coaster.
I was telling Marcie just before we came on tonight, I was all up for this. And last night, me walking through my bedroom, I stepped over a hamper. I slipped, I fell, I sprained my ankle, I sprained my wrist, and I hurt my back, right?
Oh,
and so all day long I've been popping ibuprofens, and I'm like, it's just like, I'm going to sit in that chair for 4 hours tonight? I don't know if I can. but I sitting here with you guys, feeling the love from you, I haven't felt a pain since we started.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I haven't felt a pain. I mean, even my wrist is like fine, but it was like, coming here and laughing and joking, Dave earlier were talking about being here and experiencing the bad people in your life and so on. In my regression, one of the most profound things to me was Joshua reached out and he touched my heart, and I left the physical experience. I went into the pure unconditional love of God, which is, I think, capable of all of us of achieving. But the regressionist then says, what's the next most important thing? And the next most important thing was feeling all my fears and my anxieties and all that stresses. Because if you never experienced those fears and anxieties, you could never come to know love fully.
Right.
And so you have to have that baseline to measure against. And I think it's so interesting now, all these years later, my father was not a kind man. he was an alcoholic abuser, and I was the weird kid who was having out of body experiences, and he was a plumber. Didn't work out real well, right? And now all these years later, I'm so grateful for that experience because I learned so much about how not to love my son, right? And he hears I love him every day. He's never had a hand laid on him, and it was one of the greatest lessons of my life. It also gave me an amazing lesson to say, my father was not a nice man, but he, inside of that fear and that anxiety that he was struggling against, there's a child in there who had fearful things done to him. And I can say he was a man who was doing the best he could with what he knew. And I think it really comes down to, inside all of us is that love, that anxiety, and those moments, like you were saying, Kim, about those days where you may not do so well, or you might do the dumb thing, right? And it really comes down to understanding that everybody has the day where they're not up to par, where you fall and smack your back or whatever, everybody has those days, and that's got to be okay too, because that's part of the experience of living in the physical.
It is. It's honoring the human part of us. It's when you work in the spiritual, there can be times when you kind of get your head in the clouds, and I think, and you're constantly honoring that part of you, which is wonderful. But we have to honor our human experience too. Yeah. And so I think that's always just like you falling. It's not funny, I'm sure, John, but it is such a great example of how you are reminded you're human. You're having a human experience as a spirit. And this is how much it hurts. This is how much it can hurt.
And I'm lying there on the floor and I'm groaning, and my son's going, what the heck do I do now? Right. So he was having his moment too, watching his dad writhe on the floor.
It reminds me of a certain moment when I was watching Lena Rodriguez. And of course, you're doing it live. There's construction out the window. 2 seconds after you start, it's inevitable. And Lena just continues and she says, I can't control the outside world. And she just keeps doing her cards, just pretending it doesn't happen and making it look easy. And it's just like, that's kind of our job. Make it look easy when there is a lot of prep, a lot of meditation, a lot of work to do, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like any when you do anything, if you're a hairdresser, you have to keep up on the latest styles and get, and go to hair shows and do all the things that you have to do to keep up with what's going on. And it's like in a way, it's like anything else that way. You have to kind of keep yourself in tune,
That's one of the greatest blessings in my life. I never have to keep up with the styles.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's not a bald head. That's a solar panel for a love machine.
Grass doesn't grow on a busy street, right?
That's
Joe?
right. God doesn't cover perfect heads.
I wanted to ask you guys something, and Marcie and John and David. What I've noticed lately is, I remember a couple of years ago, I got this weird message that I didn't understand then, but I understand it now, but I wanted to ask you guys about it. Is they talked about time collapsing and things moving very quickly. And so I didn't quite understand what that meant, but what I feel, especially watching each of you, seeing how quickly you've evolved and moved into other stuff. Because Dave has moved from, he was doing one thing, and then he was doing regression. He did a regression for me, which it was like a complete eye opener for me. And then moving into channeling, this evolution it's happened for me. I know everything has moved really quickly. Once I stepped in fully, okay, I'm in this, I'm going to do this. Once I made that commitment, it's been really rapid, and Marcie too. So what do you guys say about that?
I definitely feel
it. Because I think it is, but is that the case for you?
I definitely feel it. How about you guys?
For me, 2 years ago, I went on Kim Carey's interview. I had 3 subscribers and 2 videos, and now I have 1,200 videos and 16,000 subscribers.
Oh my gosh.
It's incredible. But one of the things that Jeshua taught, and it ties right into what you're saying, Kim, is we live in the I am moment, not the I will be or I was moment, and drawing that time close. That's what I call it. Call it drawing time close. Is how you connect to the source, because the one veil that we have that keeps us separate from that love is our fears and anxieties. But fear is rooted in past experience and an expectation of a negative future outcome. But in the present moment, all it is an emotional reaction to the past or the future. And when you draw that time close and you release your fears, you release the anchors that stop you from propelling forward. So the more present you are, the faster things come into your life. And over the years, my manifestations years ago used to take some time. Now I manifest in hours now. It's like I ask for something, and a couple hours later, I get it. And it literally is exactly that. Things are coming really fast. Now, when you think about your connection to source, when you channel, you get very present and you get very fearless. And that is really the key. Those 2 elements is literally drawing that time close to this present moment and knowing that in this moment it's just coming. And the less impediment you create, the faster it comes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. It really does. And I think, like, I was thinking about with Dave, because you were doing very different things. So how did you take that leap? You know what I mean? Because when you get one thing and you get it down and you feel like, okay, now I'm doing this and this is my thing. And then your spirit is saying, oh no, you need to do this thing now. There isn't just like and you were just talking about it, John, how you took the leap of going back into talking about your past life, and then the channel, and then moving in. Every single time, it's a leap of faith. It really is.
Always.
Yeah.
And another word for faith is trust, which is the word you used earlier.
Right.
So it really comes, and another word for faith and trust is belief, right? Mm-hmm. When you pray, believe you shall receive, and you shall. That's a Bible quote, right? It comes down to that thought being creative, which is one of the universal truths. Buddha said, what you think you become. Krishna said, you are the culmination of your thought. The Bible says, as a man thinketh. And noetic science is now about to prove that thoughts are creative, because they're actually measuring thought waves. And when you focus those thoughts to a specific point in space, they stop there. So they think they're about to prove that thoughts are creative scientifically as well. So when you realize that everything you're looking at is nothing but pure energy in motion and atomic energy in motion. Einstein said an atom is just an energy event. There's nothing solid there. And everything you're looking at, the wall, the air between you and the wall, and your eyes are made of that same stuff. So all we are is our beliefs, our thoughts. And it is shown to us in the illusion around us. In the beginning is the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Our thoughts, our words, our beliefs go out to the source, and the source shows us that reflection around us. That's why some people who are negative, and I'm sure some of you know negative people in the world, and if you don't know a negative person, better look in the mirror. Anyway, negative people will see a negative world because that's what they're creating into their physical experience. And positive people will see positive world. It's like when I traveled to Egypt, for a month, I was treated like a prince. And then I met another guy who was, everywhere he went, everybody wanted to fight him. But that was our physical belief about the experience. And when you realize that, coming back to what you were saying, Kim, thoughts are not impeded by drag. So creation can happen at the whim of a thought. And so it's a matter of the more we release those anchors of thought, of belief, the faster things are going to happen in our lives.
Right.
Sorry if I went off on a long tangent there.
No, I think that's
Not at all.
I think that's very well explained. And Dave, how did you again take big leaps from like 1, 2, 3? To me, it seems like 3 very different things, and yet they seem so connected for you as such natural like movements for you, which I'm just like, that's amazing.
No, it's all like perception, because it wasn't that smooth. I think one thing that did happen is during the 20 years where I was just doing shamanism, also throughout my life, these bursts of mysticism would show up, and then I'd have to go to work, and it's just like these sort of bursts, and then a few years to work them in and stuff like that. I've always had these kind of bursts throughout my life. But once I started doing this work, it actually came on almost all the time, that I would be constantly getting messages. And I don't know if you guys have this happen. I have a client, they will totally reflect whatever issue is on my mind. So if my client is talking about an issue, it'll be like, okay, Spirit is actually, as I'm giving the advice to them, I'm really going, this is advice for me, Dave. You should listen, you should meditate or listen to your own advice.
That happens a lot. Yeah,
it happens a lot. And I would, once I would get to past life regression, in the regression, sometimes people would tell me, they would be doing their regression and they would say, Dave, this is a message for you. You have to go to that park and bring your crystals and meditate. And there's just, as you're mentioning, the sort of leap of faith once you get to the point where you're starting to kind of, there's always this difficult question. What is spirit and what's just my ego telling me this? Or just a, bad habit or whatever telling me this, which one is the real spirit? And I think once I got a little bit closer to listening to how I'm feeling about things, which, as we were speaking of earlier, took me some time to get there. Once I got there, it just got to a pretty good discernment of knowing I'm reading Dolores Cannon, and these books are just jumping off the page. And as they're jumping off the page, this information, things around me are happening. People are walking up to me and saying, that's an old canon, or, like 25 people said canon on the day I was trying to read Dolores Cannon. And it just ushered it a little faster. Sometimes it was actually a little too fast, where I certainly didn't come from a Christian background at all. My parents were total agnostics, which is why as a child, when these things would happen, I would say these things and they would just look at me like, what the heck, what are you talking about? You're 4, why are you talking about reincarnation? And these things would happen to me. I did not come to Jesus immediately, and I want to just put out, if you come to this work from any religion, any earth magic, anything, It really is, it's all good. It does not matter. You're coming to the same source of love wherever it comes from, Buddha, whatever. So when I started to have sort of, actually the first time, Jesus showed up, I was absolutely flabbergasted. I absolutely couldn't believe that this was happening and that I would have that feeling. It is like a love wave. Just this feeling John was describing, like everything's going to be okay. It's just the way that it's supposed to be. What are you going to learn here? No one is judged. And that like feeling just really kind of built. I read Dolores Cannon's book on They Walk with Jesus. Halfway through that book, my partner found me in a puddle on the floor crying after an hour. He literally could hear me. He was like, what is going on? Pick me up off the floor and carry me to a room. Calm down. It's okay. It's okay. He is, a bit more agnostic in his beliefs. So sometimes it really came as almost like overwhelmingly. I was like a baby in regard to it. Sometimes it really did happen. And there were certainly twists and turns and mistakes that I made. But it's kind of like once I made the decision, it just sort of flowed. This is what you're supposed to do next. This is what you're supposed to do next. And sometimes it was a little too fast even for me, but I was like, I'd be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is what you're supposed to do next. Do this. Work with Kim, work with John, work with Marcie. I would get these messages very clearly. But yeah, it does require some bravery, and just the bravery that all of us experienced the first day that we did our first YouTube video, and nobody likes to right? We all had to have the courage to do that. And I would say to everybody out there, you all have courage. Any events in your life will show incredible courage. We all are encouraged to be incarnated on this planet at this time.
Right.
A big deal. It's a really big deal. Any issues that we're working with are really a big deal and important. So, yeah, I think I was kind of ready. And then once I got going, I was like, ooh, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's been my biggest surprise, and probably you too, Marcie, because my biggest surprise was that I would be asked by Spirit to keep evolving, and so because I could never, when I first started, I could never imagine myself doing private appointments, teaching, mentoring, making cards. That was not, those things were, I never, ever, ever could have imagined. But with each person, they'd be like, writing me, do you do private readings? And I'm like, do I do private readings? I try, I guess. That was like everything. And I was just like, whatever it was, I guess I could try. I guess I could, why not? Basically, I'm here, I'm in it, so why not try? And Debbie contacted me to teach. I'm like, I guess so. Let's do a class. So it's just really weird how it's very like, I feel literally like I've stumbled, but Spirit has caught me every single time being like, this is right. You're going in the right direction. It may feel like you're off in no man's land, but you're going in the right direction. It's okay. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm doing this. Everything's okay. And then as soon as I get comfortable, bam, now you're going to do this. It's like, what? But now, and again, it is just a blind trust. It really is a blind faith and trust. And like, okay, you got me so far. I'll go with you. But yeah.
And yet you have to let go of get out of your head. Because I truly believe God, Spirit, consciousness, yada yada, whatever you call it. I call it God because of that lady. But I believe that God speaks to us in feelings, and we have to respond in the same language. And when something comes along, and it doesn't feel right for us, the way we respond back is say, no, but this is what I'm doing. This is the thing that does feel right for me, and we respond in the language of feeling. And I think that too many people get in their heads, and in their fears and anxieties, and what you're saying and the stories you've all just told is when you got that message, it felt right to you, right? And the things that feel right in our life are the things that will always generate that love wave and spread that love across the world. You follow your truly authentic self, you're an expression of love, and that love is like a bright light on a hill. Everyone's lighting their candle from your light. And I say to people all the time, I say, most highly empathic people want to save the world. And right, the way we save the world is not by going all over the world and saving it. It's by making our part of the world so bright that the people around us choose to become bright by our example. And so the way you do that is, even with all your flaws and all your inequities, you just live into your authentic self and accept it as it comes and love what you do. And I think that creates the natural love wave.
I remember when I was about 14, I want to say 13 or 14. And I'm thinking about, you just said authentic self. Realizing that I was different at church than I was at home. And I was different with these friends, with my school friends, than I was with my church friends. And I was different with my parents than I was with my sisters. And I was different alone than I was with, this group or that group. And then I asked myself, but which one is the real me? Which one am I? And it was that question I think we all move into, because we do have these, because of being in the body and because of our ego, we have these public faces we put out. And there is that desire, I think, for everyone to find that authentic self. And it is a brave thing to just be who you are, because that's the norm. We usually do put on faces for everybody and try, especially if you're a people pleaser, especially if you're an empath. A lot of times you do it a lot, to get to survive, really. But I think that you bring up a good point, John, about authenticity and being authentic. And I think especially in this day and age, it's really becoming a necessity.
It is.
We all have to be who we truly are. And when I talked to Marcie before, it really is. I was so excited that she was starting that she had started her channel, and she had kind of gone with her heart, and she's doing it because it's all hands on deck right now. It really, really is. Every single light worker, whatever you do, whatever you wanted to do, whatever you think you can do, now is the time. Now is the time. We need every single person to do what you think you're called to do as a light worker. If you're watching this, you're a light worker. So what is your work?
I love that, Kim, because in being your authentic self, in the Bible it says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. There are many ways to love. There's many different facets. And it's my mom said spirituality is a personal journey, right? Now, the way I do it is one way, and the way Dave does it is one way, and the way Kim does it is one way, but it's all the same thing. It all comes back to that core element of just love, right? And some people come in, and if it's not their way, they start to judge, and they get fearful. They start to say terrible things, they're not open to hearing love from the many different forms, right? But you can find it in all of those ancient traditions, all of the new age traditions. You can find it everywhere, and it comes back to that base feeling of that truly authentic self. Because when you're not being authentic, you are holding air in your body to hold on, to have that air for this other person. You're not being your authentic self. Your authentic self is just like God found at the bottom of your breath. So you come back to that place of, I'm just being me and let the chips fall where they may. And there's an old quote, I cannot remember who said it, and it's not a Dr. Seuss quote, but I think Dr. Seuss actually said it later. It's like, those that mind don't matter, and those that matter don't mind. And it comes back to that idea that the ones who aren't in alignment or resonating with you, they're going to move on anyway. And the ones who do resonate with you are going to start coming into your life more and more. You talked about friends and being authentic. I have one friend of mine who I've had since I was 5 years old. He's been my best friend. And we have one rule. neither one of us ever has to say we're sorry to the other. Ever. We have we're now both coming on 60 years old. We've never had a fight in 60 years. Because we just understand if something happens, it wasn't against love. It wasn't against our love for each other, our friendship. It was just what was going on in their life at the moment.
Right.
And if we could start to look at other people and say, what's going on in their life in this moment, and how can I be a representation of love? And sometimes that is just saying, you're forgiven already. I forgive. I give love first. I forgive.
And I think that's how we are in spirit, right? Because we don't have this facade of separateness, right? So nothing is, we know each other's thoughts. We know each other, we communicate differently. We don't hide things from each other. It's very different. So that reminds me of how we actually are in spirit, John, with you, how you are with your friends, that there is this constant acceptance of all that we are.
And when I first had all my weird spiritual woo-woo experiences and past lives and regressions and all this stuff, he never once doubted me. He never once thought I was crazy. He was like, you're saying it, so I believe it. And so that, that's a rare thing to find in the world. And the reason it's rare is because everyone is going through their own fears and their anxiety and their need to be right. And their need to be right. They have their religion, that their religion has to be right. So on. Mother Teresa, they asked her one time what she does every day. And her response was really interesting. She said, every day I go out in the street and I look into the face of Jesus in all of his distressing masks.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He sees the oneness of God and Jeshua and Buddha and probably Krishna. She sees all of it in everybody she sees. And once we start to recognize that oneness of God in all of us, then the world changes, because then we just understand that person's loved too.
Absolutely.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
No. Beautiful. It gives us, it really, I think that's exactly right. And what about you, Marcie? How's everything going with you? How is your channel going? and how have you managed the ups and downs? Because you're still kind of new,
I'm still very, very new. I just go with the flow. I really do. I just trust that I'm being led where I'm supposed to be led, and that I'm doing the right things. And I just feel like as long as I'm doing it from a point of love and respect, then I'm doing the right thing. I'm having a great time. I'll tell you that. It's so much fun. And I've always been the oddball. So I'm still the oddball, and I really don't. I just don't care. What somebody else thinks about me is really none of my business. And that's kind of how I look at it. I'm just doing what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing from my heart. And I have always felt as though I had extra love. I've always felt that, even as a little, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, I've always felt that I've had extra love. And I'm always supposed to be putting out that extra love. And that's just what I run on. I don't know what I'm doing. I fly by the seat of my pants every single day. I just trust I'm going to end up where I'm supposed to end up. And that's where I go. And you can't go wrong if you're pushing love and if you're trying to help other people, be that through tarot readings or through, surgery from doctors. If you're doing things out of the point of love, you can never go wrong. And that's just what I do.
I think that's such a great mantra. I think that's a great mantra. And I love that. I was just looking at the chat, and there's Kevin's here from where did he go? Kevin Healing Medium's here.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of new people that I've never seen before.
Well, what's cool about multi-streaming like this is the chat actually is a mix of all of the if you're streaming on your channels, that the chat board is a mix of all of our commenters. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I just love that.
It's fun to watch. You can see it's fun. But
One
so
thing-
many people are on this journey with us. There are so many people that there is so much more of the loving people rather than the fearful people. There is so much more of us, or so many more of us, I guess is how I should say it. But this is our time. This is what we need to do now. This is so important for us to just spread as much love as we can and just be loving and kind. And you're going to attract love and kindness. I mean, what you put out, you get back. So it's a win-win. So just love everybody. My thing. I just love on everybody.
Gosh, that sounds so familiar. Let's see, what was that line? Oh yeah. I leave you one commandment: love one another.
Exactly, right? And it's
So
so
many times,
easy.
so many ways, and still.
It's all right there.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Don't forget to love yourself too.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends skip that step. They're loving everyone so much, and sometimes I love to say, let's go to the child you and give them love. It's okay to pray for yourself. It's great to pray for others, but really, you do. It is, I think, in terms of a love way, do spend some time with the self and be like, well,
Yes.
if this were a different person, would I be so critical? Would I leap on every single mistake that I would say, no, people make mistakes and I am learning. So don't hesitate to. A lot of empathetic people, I find, are always thinking of others and they do forget themselves sometimes. And you can't really do a great job of loving others unless you are addressing the self and its needs and, changes you need to make perhaps, but be kind to yourself.
Yeah, you have to fill your own vessel. You really do. You have to take that time and remember who you are. Remember the child that you were, and just it's kind of hard sometimes to give yourself a break.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how you guys do it. How do you take a moment? And because this can be difficult work and it can be stressful, and if you're always giving, you gotta get recouped.
My husband is huge. My husband is huge in that. My husband is my biggest supporter, and he doesn't get any of this. He doesn't. He really just.
Like my husband, yeah. So it sounds like mine too, Marcie.
And it's
He's
so
supportive, but kind of on the outskirts, kind of like, okay, you want.
But it's funny because every now and then he'll go, "Wait a minute, did that just happen?" So he's starting to get some of it. But one of our conversations that we had, there was a commercial on, and I went down to his man cave, and there was a commercial on the TV about Bigfoot. Like there was this kid who was driving in his car through the mountains with his parents, and they had they were listening to a guided tour, and they were talking about Bigfoot. And then the kid said, "What's Bigfoot?" And the parents immediately shut off the TV, the radio, and said, "Oh, nothing." And I looked at my husband. I was like, "Why would they lie to their kids like that?" And he looked at me, and he said, "What?" I said, "Why would they lie to their kids about Bigfoot not existing?" And he said, "You believe in Bigfoot?" "You don't believe in Bigfoot?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because they haven't proven he exists." I said, "But they haven't proven he doesn't." It's a lot more fun to believe in Bigfoot than there is to think of a world without Bigfoot in it, So he's used to me being, I've known him since I was 9 years old. So he knows me better than most people. But it's just, he is my biggest supporter, and he just doesn't believe in any of this. But he continuously fills my vessel. If you believe in it, honey, then that's what you've got, and that's you, and that's great. He doesn't make fun of me, which I don't get from a lot of people. But it is. He understands. He understands that this is who I am, and he's all about the love. He's just not about the mystical stuff like me. Yeah, he's not about the magic. He's my. He brings me down to. He kind of brings me into reality sometimes too.
I'm married to a skeptic too, and not a cynic. He's a skeptic. But when my guides opened his phone for him, he was a believer. There's something that switched in that moment because he's like, Kim, I've got one try to get into my phone. I cannot remember the code. And I said, it's blah, 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 blah. And he said for a moment, I thought, I'm going to try my code, or I can go with Kim's guides because I know that's who's talking to her right now. And he went with the guides and his phone opened up. So what was that?
And you're like, so there. Be a skeptic.
But yeah, there are those moments where it's like, I can't explain it. I can't explain that. I'm not fully on board, but I can't quite explain it. But to answer your question, Dave, I always think about an Eckhart Tolle thing that is something that he said that always stuck with me and made me a lot better at taking care of my own energy and my taking responsibility for my own energy. And that is that he explained that every action we take, everything we say, anything we put into the world, our energy is infused with it. So if we're giving a donation and we're racked with worry and concern and fear and upset, and we give a donation with that energy attached to it, that's what's attached to it. But if we give it with peace in our heart and hope and calm and love and understanding, that energy is infused with the same money, same cause, same thing, same gesture, but it's infused with completely different energy. And that stuck with me. And so it's not so, because I think sometimes, especially empaths, like you said, can get stuck on, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be thinking of me. I want to be, I want to help this person or this person. But when you think of it that way, it is for other people that you keep yourself in a good place. And so a lot of the things I talk about on the channel, especially when it comes to things that are happening in the world, is to come back to your center, to remember how you're connected to source, where that happens within you, and go there often and remind yourself, and that peace will come through. That peace, John, I'll give a quote back to you. That peace that passes all understanding, that peace that makes no sense at all, but it's coming through. And that is what comes through for me when I connect with that part of myself that's connected to source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I would call your authentic self.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's exactly spot on.
Yeah.
But that's how I do it, Dave, to answer your question.
Beautiful.
Thank you. It's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was something I wanted to point out here, but I can't find it now, of course. Everything passes so quickly. It's like,
it is moving really fast over there.
But I'm glad everybody's here, and I'm glad that I did want to ask a question. When I was thinking about love, so I knew this was coming up, and thinking about love, and one of our purposes, I think, for all of us to be here is to meet situations with love, whatever the situation is. But there are little situations you can meet with love, and there are big ones. So how are the ways that you guys meet little situations with love? The guy who cuts you off in traffic, the mean store clerk, how do you meet those moments with love? How do you do that? What is the thought process for you?
For me, it always starts with, what's their fear? What are they afraid of? I just recently registered a vehicle at the motor vehicle, and I walked in, and the lady behind the counter was very, very snarky. and she was like, "You men, blah 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 blah." I said, "You're so right. I'm so sorry. I'll fix it, ma'am." And she started to giggle. And the more I teased her about, "Oh yeah, no," and then I wrote something on the wrong line. It said, my man brain." Right? I was like, what? She's had a bad experience with a man, and so to be the man who is enjoying it and laughing with her and giving her a moment to smile, I'm giving her an off ramp. And so it's like when the guy cuts me off, the first thing I think is, my gosh, it's how sad that he feels he has to rush like that. You know, I always look at it from, if they're doing something that's negative in any form, mad, sad, frustrated, angry, I always first of all, I exhale so I don't have my fear response, right? I'd be an action hero, not a reaction zero. And right. And I go, okay, what's their fear? And then usually my compassion kicks in, because now I recognize that they're not feeling the love because they're in their fear. And so that's how I do it. Anybody else?
That's great. And that's a great thought process to have, I think, is what are they afraid of? Yeah. And sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Just, you guys are way more involved than me.
And that's okay too.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on. And so I am still working through that process, but I am getting much better at that process. I think one really good event happened when I was convinced to, after all the political stuff, to look at Trump as a human and just see, who is that person really? And I was shocked to see that, he's a scared kid, and be glad, God, I'm really glad I had awesome parents. This guy's dad was just awful, this poor kid. I mean, if you see people as a child, you have a lot of sympathy for them. And I used to work with kids, sometimes kids who had problems, and you can always tell the kid is just acting out what's going on at home. Punishment is not what that child needs. What that child needs is somebody to talk to. So since that time, and perhaps even before the time, I am a little bit better of just going, okay, Dave, stop being in that feeling, recognize the feeling is anger. Okay, here's the anger. Oh yeah, anger, actually, I don't want to reject that. Sometimes anger is very helpful. Be friends with that anger. What's it trying to tell you? And I should be a little bit more in control of the anger rather than have the anger control me. And I'm hoping that I will evolve, and I am evolving to the point where I have to say to myself, what are you learning? I'm still fighting. I moved to a new apartment, and I'm still fighting for my old deposit. The landlord is, holding $4,000. Totally crazy. Sometimes just a secret. Sometimes Australians can bushwhack a little bit. They can be a bit tricky with money. Occasionally happens. And so, of course, I was raging. I was just sort of, how dare they? And I've got a partner who's much calmer. And it's like, babe, we'll just go to the council. We'll just get it back. Why is this agitating? Why are you letting her control you?
Right.
And now I'm starting to realize, somebody can poke me, can be triggered. I'm very vulnerable. And instead, I'm going to go, okay, what I need to learn here is just hold this emotion. I have this feeling of righteous indignation. Where's that coming from? Oh yeah, I can see a bunch of things in my childhood showing me why I would be so righteous. So here's an opportunity for me to learn about myself instead of reacting in a particular way. And I do think that we do need sometimes, when people are behaving badly, to react, right? Not overreact, but react. I think, I forget which Buddhist said, when you're praying, here's the action, perhaps the bad action. And here's you receiving that bad action and responding. Do you need to be like, I'll kill you? Or could you just, I'm here with my mom and she's 83. Are you really going to cut in line in front of us?
Right.
And you approach it a little bit more like a conversation, or let us accept that this is happening to you right now. Now, how do I meet it? And I'm going to also say, accept that you're going to blow it 10,000 times. You're going to make a mistake. A person wasn't really cutting. You'll be kind of embarrassed. So it's better to be nice about it because you might be wrong, but you will make mistakes and you will overreact. And that is part of the self-love, where you go, okay, I did it this time. Next time I'll do this better and treat myself well. And yeah, I have this emotional reaction. That's normal and okay. How am I going to deal with that? How am I going to accept that? So, in short, I'm still working on it. I'm trying to be as evolved as you guys, they maybe will. But it does. It's almost like you kind of need to stop yourself and go, oh. And I think part of it is recognizing feelings that you have and accepting that,
Yeah.
We all have the feelings of greediness and selfishness and anger. We all have those. And to some degree, those are helpful. If we were not a little bit greedy, we would maybe not get enough money to eat. So recognizing them and saying, oh, that's what that is. And then being in relationship to that and saying, well, okay, Mr. Anger, how do I act here? That's productive for all of us. Because I'm not just going to sit here and let this guy cut in front of me. I do feel like I have to do something. And how? Right. That's just the question. And I'm going to be doing this, I'm sure, for the rest of my life.
I think you're right. When you can move into that observer position, like that's the one Eckhart Tolle is like that a new consciousness moves in, and you're not seated in that reactive, small me, ego place. You're kind of moved out of that, and you're able to kind of step back for a second and look at it from a different point of view. And I think you're right, Dave. I think that's when you kind of you have options at that point. You're not just reacting. And I love that. And what about you, Marcie? How do you handle the little?
Quite honestly, I don't get a lot of people being angry with me, or I think because when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, and I don't get out of the house much. I'm very much a homebody. I'm doing my stuff at home. But when I go out, I'm happy to see people. And I go through the grocery store and I'm like, hi, just talking to everybody. It's hard.
Who could be annoyed by you?
I know I believe you, Marcie.
I mean, you always got this giant smile and this sparkling eyes. And like, how could you just not love Marcie? Oh my gosh. Marcie is a love wave.
I really, like I said, I always feel like I have extra love, and I'm just and when you go out and you're like this, don't get me wrong. When I was a kid, I was known that you did not mess with me because I would box you to the floor. I beat up so many guys growing up. You would never believe it. I had more.
Well, you're from Boston. That's part of a prerequisite, isn't it?
But it was like, but it was usually, most often it was in defense of somebody else. I could not stand to see somebody else being picked on. And I remember my first day on the bus when I first moved to the town that I live in. On the school bus, I was 9 years old. And I was sitting there, and there was a kid who started like trouble with me. And so I confronted him, and he was like a big guy. He was like one of those kids that was like 6 feet tall in the 5th grade. And he was giving me a hard time. So I just kind of like put him in his place. I was like, does it make you feel good to pick on a little girl? I kind of embarrassed him and put him in his place. So then he started picking on this other kid. So I got up and I went and I sat with that kid and I turned around and I looked at him. I could never stand to see somebody else get picked on, but I used to get into a lot of fist fights when I was a kid, believe it or not. And I feel bad about that. A lot of that was what was happening inside of me that I was trying to figure out. But once I got past that, I'm just like, I just want everybody to be happy. I just want everybody to feel loved and cared for and significant so that they can contribute to the world in a positive, loving way. And that's just what I do now. So people don't usually, it's kind of hard to yell at somebody who's like this all the time. You know what I mean? You just can't.
That is for sure. And somebody, I don't know who it was in the chat. I don't know if you guys saw that. Somebody was asking what if any of us had help for somebody who is having fear come in during meditation, fearful thoughts or fearful, maybe going back to fearful past events, or because that is the thing about meditation is depending on what's happening in your life or what you're working on, things can come up. It's therapeutic. Things pop up, things you completely forgot about pop up here and there. So what do you what do you say to somebody who is having fearful things pop up during meditation, or things that make them fearful?
For me, I would say go back to the breath again, because all fear comes with storing air in the lungs. And so if you're having a fearful thought, you've broken out of the loving place and into the fearful place, which means you're holding air in. So release the fear with the full exhale, and come back to that base place where you don't have to have a reserve to run fast. You just you go back to that space and say, I'm, in your mind, just joyfully release it. I'm releasing that. And thank you for bringing that up. I'm releasing that. It's like, in meditation, 90% of the world doesn't think they can meditate, but they say, I'm quieting my mind, and then that fearful thought pops in. Mm-hmm. And then they go, ooh, and then I'm quieting my mind, and they go back, and another one comes in. And after the third or fourth time, they don't think they can. But the true secret of meditation is that it's a learned process. It's a habit, and you've got to continually do that exact same process, because the people who are really good at it have gone through that exact same process. They just kept doing it until the quiet times in between lasted longer. Because
right.
Yeah, and so you come back to that space of, I'm just going to continually to create the habit of, by actively pushing it aside and releasing the fear state. It's the same thing with subconscious beliefs. It's the exact same process. Subconscious belief comes in and says, want, need, hope, try, wish, can't. You go, no, not doing that. Going back to being beautiful and loving and caring and having this experience. And so you have to train that habitual mind, both in meditation and in life, to not have those fearful thoughts.
And I think too, don't fight with yourself. If you're having, I like to do something different all the time. And I do a lot of meditating, kind of like, monks do. I clean. That's how I meditate, is I do that, that repetitive action that really helps me get into a meditative space. I get a lot of messages that way. So if you're having a real, a difficult session, break it up. Go and, move more into a mindfulness practice where you go out and walk, and you look at the sky, and you smell the air, and you listen to the birds, and, move. Don't feel like you have to just sit there and fight through it when you're not having a great, at least for me, some days I can really meditate deeply and I can do that. And other days I'm more on the surface. I just feel like I'm more human today and I just can't do it. So I'll do what I can. And that's usually I'll move into that meditative space in other ways. But there's lots of ways to meditate. It's not just one way.
I like the fact that you honor the way you are being in the moment. In this moment, I'm not going to go as deep today. So I love the fact that you're very present about that. And because I think that's the key to it all. Like I said, just be as present as you can be.
Speaking of being present,
we have
Celtic Tarot Sheila here.
Celtic Tarot Sheila.
Let me add her on.
There she is. Woo, wave, love wave, love wave, love wave. That's Marcie's thought idea. She did the love wave thing. I love it.
Sheila, I am so happy to meet you. Oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you.
I am in the presence of greatness with all of you people. I am just so excited.
Oh, we are shoulder to shoulder in this world.
Amen.
We live shoulder to shoulder. We do not have hierarchy, and my heart is the same place as yours.
Yes, it is.
So just wanted to make sure we know that.
love that. Love that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. What do you have for us? Where do you want to start?
Oh, was I supposed to come with an agenda?
We could just talk about things.
What happened was I have this YouTuber. She's brand new, and she created these Love is Always the Answer oracle cards that she had emailed me a while back. She goes, Sheila, would you like some? I always say yes to any free card. And she emailed it, and I just wanted to unbox them. I mean, literally, I thought love is always the way. I'm like, what a perfect spot You can go to her YouTube channel, which is Love is Always the Way. And you can ask her to get some. She has them advertised on that. So, a shameless plug for her. But I thought I'd open one up and see what she has. What do you guys think?
Oh, I'm all about it.
All right.
Great.
And I wanted to answer, I've been listening for a little while. I wanted to answer Kim's, some of her questions that she had. I thought were excellent questions too. After going, yeah. All right, hang on a minute. So they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Love is always the way. And they're really thick. I like thick cards because they last for a little bit longer. And they have You Are Love. So this is a really good starting. So You Are Love. The producing, a lot of people walk into this world or birthed into this world thinking that they have to go get love. And one of the things that we learn as we get older, unfortunately, as when we get older, is that I am love. Therefore, I will attract the same energy as love versus going out and trying to go get it with an empty vessel inside of me. It never works and never has worked. So there's that. This one here, it says uplift with love. And somebody else was talking about that, uplifting with love. I remember somebody, I think it was Carolyn Mace, that she came out, this is dating me, right? This is for a long, long time ago. Carolyn Mace, she came out with a book. I usually use audios, an audio CD, and she talked about self-esteem, right? And she talked about the self-esteem because you cannot go get your self-esteem off the rack anywhere, right? And self-esteem, and then of course she always circles it around. Self-esteem is starting to accept and be okay with who you are. Now somebody would say, love yourself, and I would go, whatever, people. Good job for saying that to me, because I never could figure it out. What do you mean, love myself? I was like, I'm selfish. I get that. What do you want me to be? It was so convoluted and so confusing when it says love yourself, and it's not as simple as just doing that. There's a lot of process in it, a lot of purging and getting through and accepting, and there's just a lot to it. I'm not done, of course, with loving myself or trying to love myself. But it reminds me, as uplift with love, she said, if you ever walk across somebody who is sad, give them a gift of love, or give them a gift of self-esteem, and tell them how beautiful they are, or that you like their outfit. I remember that tool a long, long time ago, like a cashier. You could see that she's muddled. The cashier, she's sad, she's pissed off, she has one more Christmas person that's going to walk through her line, complain about this, complain about that. And I would walk up and I said, you do this really well. And you could just see just the immense amount of change. That little bit has now lifted her up and out of her crap that she had been dealing with all day. Or if I needed to go further, I was like, I've been watching you. You're really fast. You do this well. Or I would compliment her on anything and everything that I could see. Those are the type of things that being an empath and being aware and just being a woke person walking through life. If you're noticing somebody who is sad, give them a gift of love or a self-esteem. And right when you know that they need it because you're seeing it. So that was another thing, uplift with love. Long story short, right? Sorry. Universal love. I can go on and on and on, but she really has some nice cards. I'm pretty sure with an oracle. It says transform with love. So love is the key. As soon as we figure out what love is, we should be using it all the time.
Yep.
Okay.
Love is the answer, right? Who was that? England Dan and John Ford Coley. Who did Love is the Answer? I don't remember now.
Is it a song?
I'm dating myself.
But anyways, I just wanted, her name of the maker of these cards. I knew it was around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Shannon. Oh, goodness, Sheila. Okay. Shannon Pater, Pedder. Petter. I'm sorry. I'm so horrible with names. You would not believe. Shannon. Anyways, you can buy them from her. I think they're wonderful. There's a shameless plug for her, and I thought they showed up at the absolute perfect time.
I think so too, and I'm certainly going to look right into those because
Yep.
that's right up my alley.
Yep, she has a book you can read. You can do lots of tarot readings if you have clients that would like to have a love reading. I think this would be perfect.
Nice. And thank you, Kara, for the donation or this I don't know if they're called super stickers or whatever. Thank you.
Oh, and I wanted to answer I wrote that one of the questions down that she says, how do I meet the mean people? Right? How do I meet the mean people? I usually
how do you meet them with love? How do you turn it around? Even in your own mind, how do you deal with it? Yeah.
How do I deal with it? Well, I'm usually shocked. I don't know why. I've been in this world for, over 55 years, and I will come across somebody who is mean, and I'm still has that little girl in their shock, like, I can't believe how mean you are. You know what I mean? I show up with that first, like, why are you doing that? And so instead of course, matching their meanness, I choose to not match them. I won't join them. And if you don't join them in their meanness, they're going to then wick off of your own energy. And whatever it is that you're presenting, whatever you're bringing to the world that day, be careful of what you bring to that world today. And so I think sometimes mean people, we really don't have to do much of anything other than offer them a vibration of kindness and love and gentle and stuff. Like sometimes you have to go beyond that, but I think that's the most important, is to start from the beginning before you leave the house, how you're going to address somebody who's mean or crabby or disgruntled. So that was mine.
I think that's great. It's rare these days that, well, I come across that, at least in my world. I know I see it online and all that, whatever, but I don't see it that often in my world. I think I'm kind of like Marcie. I don't get out that much, so that makes sense. But so it's not, I don't come across it that often, but I was coming through the airport and I was in, and you know how the airport is. I mean, the line for the security was forever. And this woman just like went under the ropes or, under the stalls and went right in front of me. And I kind of looked at her and she's like, I've got a plane to catch. And I'm like, okay. And it really was one of those moments where I'm like, what do I do? It's like, and then I just kind of laughed because I thought, well, yeah, we all have plane to catch. That's a good one. But I just thought that it was really one of those moments where I was like, what do I do? And so I kind of laughed and I let it go. But it was annoying and I didn't like it. But at the same time, I was just like,
you see, if I was that girl that's trying to get cut in line, I would also pick you to get in front of. You know why? Because you look kind, you look wonderful. You look like one of those Mormon girls that would just allow you to do it.
I'm the pushover in the line. Yeah, it was just funny, and so I guess I just kind of laughed about it. But but I had to step back and. It was a good practice moment. It was a good practice. I turned it into a practice because I kind of like looked at it from every angle and thought, that's so interesting.
Or you could have made $20. I mean, $20 and I won't say nothing.
Yeah. What do you have for me?
Right. At $20, I won't say nothing.
But mostly I'm kind of like you, John. I kind of think or day, I can't remember who said this, but what's happening in their day. And sometimes I'll even kind of say a little prayer I hope whatever is going on is resolved so that you can feel better and you can be happier. Because clearly you're not happy. There's something going on where you're not happy. So
right. I love the idea of like Sheila said is your energy changes their energy. Right. Mm-hmm. And we get to choose how we go through our world and how we live in that world. I recently flew back to Rehoboth Beach to visit my sister. Actually, I was flying back to Rehoboth Beach and I found out that Sheila was in Rehoboth Beach. And we missed each other by hours. It was like crazy. But I was flying, and I saw her message on Facebook. I was like, "Are you in Rehoboth Beach?" Yeah, I am. Right? It's like, but I booked this flight. I was flying into Philadelphia, and about a week before, and I got a really cheap flight, like $75 one way. And I was like, "Cool." So about a week before I was going to go, I looked online just to see what airline it was, and it was Frontier. I'd never flown on Frontier. I started reading the reviews of Frontier. They have like a 30% customer approval rate, and everyone tells how terrible it is, and they're going to rip you off for this. And I literally said out loud, I said, nope, I am having the easiest and most beautiful trip to Delaware that I am having. And I literally went to the airport, and I'm standing in line, and I'm hearing everybody in line mad, angry about the airline. And I walked up to the lady, just like Sheila did. I walked up to the lady at the counter. I said, "How are you today?" She said, "I'm okay, sir. How are you?" I said, "You know what? No matter what you hear today, you're doing a great job here, and I'm really grateful that you're here to help me." And she said, "Oh, well, thank you, sir." And we started talking. I picked up my bag. I set it on the scale. She said, "Well, you're half a pound under our overage weight, so there's no extra fees, sir." And she sent me on my. I said, "Where's the security gate?" She says, "It's right around the corner." And I walked down around the corner. I was the only person in line in the security gate. Walk straight through. I go all the way to my plane. I get on my plane, and I'm walking on the plane, and I go to sit down, and the flight attendant comes over and says, "Sir, I think you might be more comfortable in our first class, and there's a seat up there. Would you like to have it?" And I moved up to my first class. I sat down. I had a whole beautiful flight. Got to Philadelphia. Got off the plane. Walked to the baggage claim. Mine was the first bag out. I grabbed it. I walked out to the curb. My sister pulls up just as I get to the edge of the curb. Now, the thing that was so cool, it was a great flight, right? I repeated it step by step on the way home.
Wow.
Exactly the same thing.
Manifesting you were talking about, John.
Yeah, and it goes back to what Sheila just said about walking through life with that feeling that things are great and things are beautiful, and you are the love wave in your life.
Yep.
Well,
It's so true. It works so well. It really does.
I'm so sorry. As I say, people can feel our energy too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that, as we walk through this, it's like I'm an empath, so I'm constantly feeling everybody's, whether I want to or not. And I really forget that mine is also in there.
Right.
Somewhere lost in translation because yo dude over here is angry, but it's still there. Still there.
Yo, dude. That made me smile.
Hi, Dave. I just wanted to say hello, Dave. Hey, Dave. My partner.
Yeah. You guys made me think of something quite funny. When you do go to a different culture, the social rules are totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And the social rules of Australia really are totally casual. So I had a friend from Spain, and he was a lawyer in Spain, but he couldn't find a job. So he's working at just a Zara. And he's at the cash register, and the cash register stopped working. And he's like, "Dave, I was shocked. All 25 people had really nice things to say to me." He's like, "If I were in Spain, every one of them would have read the riot act. I would have been pilloried." And he's like, "I was gobsmacked. After an hour, not one person had said something unkind." And so when I came to the US, I noticed that people were agitated, people were quite angry, everybody's fighting. It's just like, what's going on with these people that they are this upset? I'm getting upset. The cab driver's upset. Everybody is upset. I'm like, what's going on? And it was quite a political adventure that was before the last election. There's so much, and it's like, one thing it kind of made me think is, what is there about the American consciousness that's always walking up to people saying, "You're not allowed to do that. You got to do it." And what's up to the American consciousness? People are always like, "I don't have to follow the rules. I can do whatever I want. I'm independent." It's not the same in other places. So one thing I just notice is maybe now I notice more. What's the tenor of the situation of what's going on? I remember watching some YouTube. You go down that tunnel of YouTube where you're watching people get angry about whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're raging and they're saying terrible things to another person, and you just gotta go, wow, what has that poor person been watching on YouTube that has just set them off And hey, now I'm watching that stuff too. Stop the raging. Because every time you see that raging person on YouTube, something's happened. Either they've been sitting in front of YouTube raging, and angry for something for several hours, or something in their life has happened that has brought them to that place. And, all of these things could just make us say, hey, what are we doing that is bringing us to a not love place? And that's especially for me, because I go there all the time. What's happening? What's going on in our environment that this isn't happening, and what's needed? Because sometimes that person who's really raging at something really does need you to say something positive, as you guys mentioned. I think it's really insightful that you guys are able to do that. I'm going to strive to be more like you.
Well, Dave, and to answer your question, the United States over the last, how long has it been now? 7 years? We have been through a lot. I think emotions are spilling over for some people. I think that we're exhausted. We've been through a lot. We're still trying to make sense of things. We're still on that edge. We're still teetering on that edge that we've been on for a while politically. I think people are scared. I think they're worried. I think they're being lied to, right? There's people that are not being told things that are true. They're completely wrong. So I think it's a stew. It's a bunch of things all kind of culminating in this. And you see it spilling over with certain individuals that are just, I think that it's kind of like a psychotic break or a cracking or something. You see it a lot. And I just, when I see it, whether I see it online, knock on wood, I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen it online. All I can think to do is pray and just start finding that center again, because I know that, well, for me, Eckhart Tolle is a big help for me. That he says the most important thing when you come across someone who is unconscious is to not become unconscious yourself.
Correct.
So you go into the drama with them. You stay on the outside and you stay conscious. That's your responsibility when you come across someone who is unconscious, or a group of people that are unconscious. That's when your job is to stay conscious.
Right.
And I think that, and it's a trick right now. It really, really is. It is a practice. And I try to just use it as my practice. How am I going to hear this person saying all the wrong things at all the wrong times? And how am I going to stay conscious through this? And again, meet it with love. Send them prayers. I hope that they find hope somewhere in their life, that they can find a way out. We're all brothers and sisters still, even if we may not agree and we may not be in the same place at the same time, but we're all still brothers and sisters here, and we need to to try to lift each other up, like Sheila was saying, and you guys were saying so well.
One of the things that I love, I love all you guys, obviously, but there's one thing that I love so much about you, Sheila, is your strength. Like, you are not afraid to say what's on your mind, but you say it with the kindness and the compassion and love. And I just am in awe of your energy. I really love watching you. I really love how you handle everything. How long have you been doing this? Because I'm sorry, I don't know much about your history.
What do you mean? Like doing like tarot cards, or their YouTube, or
YouTube?
I think I started just before the 2020 election, so it was like March of 2020. I started to. What was my first video? It was March of 2020. It was because of Trump, and he was getting worse, and all of the elections coming up, and I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, I kept on watching and listening and stuff like that. I was like, these people need some truth. some spiritual truth. because we are all going down that rabbit hole. Like I was watching people just like, oh my gosh, he's gonna do this and he's gonna do that, and I would flip over my card like, no, he's not. You know what I mean? Oh my God, he's gonna win another presidency. I'd flip over a card like, no, Biden's gonna win. You know what I mean? So I mean, the spiritual guides and stuff like that. But anyways, that was my catalyst to come on and to do this. But tarot cards I've been doing since I was like 25 years old. I had an older sister. Actually, I'm 6 out of 7 children, and I have 5 girls, and I'm the youngest girl. And so my third oldest sister was into metaphysical and all of that and manifested it. Now I was raised in a religious body, so we had a secret. It was like a secret. Everything was always a secret in my house. But anyways, so we had to secretly go and worship the devil, you know what I mean? As they would call it. and I just was very, very drawn to the metaphysical life. I was not connected to the religious part of my upbringing at all. I have a lot of stories about that. So I came from that. I mean, from anybody that's in the Mormon Church right now, and if it's working for you, then wonderful. It's doing great stuff for you. For me, I was a suffering little child. Being raised in the Mormon Church. And I was on that cusp. My mother could have easily, she also was talking about being in the polygamy. So I could have literally have been raised in polygamous versus the regular Mormon mainstream church. But that's a whole nother story as well. That's a whole podcast. I'm a Gemini, so things will just, you guys have to stop me.
You and me both, sister. You and me both.
Some of my favorite people are Geminis.
And that strength thing, I didn't have that inner strength until I started utilizing kindness. Does that make any sense to anyone?
Yeah.
I was always afraid to say something the wrong way or become. I was not perceived as kind and wonderful person. I was always for some reason. It was really weird to me, as I was called all the names. I was called whatever, and I had the hardest time trying to just make genuine friends. It was the weirdest thing. I tried so hard. At first I would try, well, maybe I should be a mean girl, or maybe I should be this, or maybe I should be that. And one day I said, well, what about just being kind? And I resorted to that. I said, be kind no matter what. There's a poem at the end it says, be kind no matter what. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use that. I'm going to try that. That sounds good. That feels better. And all of a sudden, when I started addressing every single situation in my life, what would kindness do? How can I be kind here? And all of a sudden, my strength and my ability to just overcome, to address any conversation, to be in any conversation. I literally can have somebody yelling and screaming at me in really anger, and I would ask myself, what's the kindest thing that I can do right now? Sometimes it is, let's separate and we'll address this later when we have a clearer mind. That's kindness.
Right.
And so, and I always equate kindness as love as well. So I know. I don't know. I hope people are understanding.
Sheila, I love that. In the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad says, "He who knows not kindness has no faith," and the Dalai Lama says, "My religion is simple. My religion is kindness." So I think you're tapping into love.
Right.
Good job. Right.
We have a troll in here, and I don't mean to give any oxygen to any trolls, but it says y'all are fake, and I would love to challenge that person to
thumb wrestling.
7 says y'all are fake, and I love to challenge that person to act as we do and see how well you work in life, and then go back to the way you act in life and see which one does better for you.
Yeah. Even the concept of y'all are fake is needing to reach out to judge because you're feeling that you're your own beliefs are being challenged. You know, why not being open to all of it and saying, okay, where's the love, and just follow the loving stuff. None of us are talking hate or lies. We're talking love, period.
Right.
And so,
Good job, you guys. We just have the person that just showed up that we have to be kind to.
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Well done. Right. Great, you guys. Excellent.
Somebody who has a hard time being kind will look at people who are kind as fake. And I think that poem says that you can be kind and people will think that you're a fake. You could, tell the truth. People will think that you were lying. You tell the truth anyway. You be kind anyway. You be, I wish somebody might have that poem up. I think it's from a nun. Does anybody know what poem that is? Hold
I
on.
have no idea.
I'm gonna go to Dr. Google here in a minute.
Dr. Google, my best friend. He heals all wounds.
Somebody's saying Mother Teresa. Is it from Mother Teresa?
It is. I have it here. So would you guys like for me to read it?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. It says, people are unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of being selfish and I don't have my glasses. And you have ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. What you spend years building, somebody could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. If you see in the end, it's between you and God anyway. So that's my favorite poem. You, God, the universe, spirit, whatever it is that you choose to connect, whatever you know what I'm saying. Anyways, it's never between you and them. It's between you and who you are. Every day, it's between you and who you are every day. I cannot be mean just because somebody calls me a bad name. Is that who I am? No, I'm not mean. So I'm not going to be mean to you no matter how you act. And it's just another way of, and I learned this probably in my 30s. I'm a late bloomer, apparently. The lessons, and it was like late 30s that I read this poem one day. And I thought, yeah, that's a way to live. That's a recipe. That's definitely a great thing to do. So anyways.
So everyone, I must go. Got to move on. But I really appreciate you guys setting this up and being here. It was really, really a lovely idea, which was just barely an idea until you brought it forth here, Marcie. That's really well done.
And
Thank you so much, Dave.
That all lays on Marcie's shoulders. This was her doing. Well done, Marcie.
Dave,
Thank you. But thank you so much, Dave. Take care. Keep in touch.
Yeah,
Well,
and I will
thank you,
see you
Dave.
in January.
Love to all you guys.
Love
Thanks
to you as
so much.
well.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. I wanted to tag on what Sheila just said, because someone up here in the things asked about turning the other cheek, and I think that's exactly what you're doing. Is you're turning the other cheek. They in the Bible, people often ask me what Joshua meant by saying turn the other cheek, and I always like to tell a story of the guy screaming in my face with his finger at my nose, saying I'm a mother effer and all this stuff, and in that moment I just exhaled, and I just came back to my baseline. I didn't react in offense or defense. I just came back to my baseline, which is what I consider turning the other cheek. I just came back to my baseline. Once I did that, once I released my fearful reaction to it, I was then able to see that he was afraid of not making enough money. And once I saw that he was afraid of not making much money, and I wasn't giving him and feeding his reaction, feeding his fear dissipated very quickly. And then I was able to say to him, I said, Jerry, I'm sorry you're having this experience. I said, nothing was done intentionally. How can we solve the situation? Mm-hmm. And 10 minutes later, he comes back and he says, John, I'm sorry. I was just having a bad day. And, but it was turning the other cheek. You diffuse situations by not feeding situations, and not only not feeding it, but being the exact thing that everyone wants is to be loved in some form.
It's hard to be mean to a kind person.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, it is.
To a loving, kind, tolerant, all-inclusive person. Even the meanest of the mean really have a hard time doing that.
Yeah, it's true.
But then again, I'm not a doormat either. I will walk away from your energy if you continue on. I do not have to be there.
There's
Right.
no part of God that's not equal with any other, and that you have to include yourself in that equation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's so much easier to love. It is just so much easier to put that love out there. And if somebody's hurting, they'll respond to it. They will respond to it.
Right.
You just have to love each other. It's a very simple request.
I had a question that I was thinking about when Kim was saying her questions, and I have to say this out loud too, Kim. I really absolutely love you. I have been watching your channel for a while, and before even I got on, and I just saw you before you even spoke. I'm like, good grief, this woman is full of love. I just wanted to let you know that you are exhibiting love even through YouTube.
So thank you, Sheila. That's so sweet. And it's weird too because I didn't know we're both raised in the Mormon Church, and we also are both the youngest of 5 girls.
Yeah, well, there you have it. Were you the best commodity? Was you're the trophy daughter?
What did you say?
I said, were you the trophy daughter as well? I was the trophy daughter. I was the one that they really wanted to make sure that I got a good, hardworking, rich Mormon boy.
Really? Yeah, that did not appeal to me at all. I don't think I ever even dated a Mormon, so
I couldn't.
That's not my thing.
Like, you have nothing. We have nothing in common. You're a Mormon girl. No, seriously, we have nothing in common. But anyways, okay. Back to the question I have is when you mess up, how I learn all the rules is I break them all, right? Or how do you learn social cues is I mess them all up. I say something stupid, act this, and I'm like, ah. But what do you do to go in your home and lick your wounds? How do you handle that part of loving yourself through your own mistakes? Now, I know that Kim and I and I know that her and I were raised in the Mormon Church. We have been taught, from the get-go, when we make a mistake, we are going to be punished. And of course, the punishment is what we're supposed to be accepting. And I don't want to do that anymore. But what is it that you do? Because I have sometimes social cues. Being raised in the Mormon Church, I literally have social anxiety. I have social problems, and I know people see it, but I don't know what to do with it anymore. But anyways, that's the question out there is, what do you guys do to your own self when you make a mistake and you lose something in front of somebody or whatever it is?
Well, it's interesting because I think, and like I said, that organized religion has its place, right? It has had its place in my life, and it will have, it is what it is. But with the Mormon Church, there is something that goes on, particularly with women in the church, where you really you really do feel like you're not good enough, and you're not doing enough, and you're not worthy, and you need to do more. And there's these there, and it's partly the church, but it's also partly ourselves wanting to please, so wanting to be okay, wanting to do the right thing, wanting to, and so you kind of get on this treadmill of trying to keep up and trying to be better and be, as good as you can be. I remember all I wanted to do when I was in the church was just be good. I just be good. I just want to be good. And I think it is kind of a trap, because we're all imperfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And mine came out in a lot of wanting to control the environment. So wanting to have a really clean house. So wanting to have a real, kind of trying to control every little thing that I could. And I'm going back many years. I'm way over that now. But that is how it kind of exhibited itself. And so I had to do everything for it to be right. And so I exhausted myself trying to keep order and keep, it was just this endless treadmill. And so now I had to get to a point when Cassie was born. That was a big turning point for me, because I realized I had to let that go. Otherwise she was going to be the same. I had to let go of how hard I was about the way I looked. Otherwise she would be the same. So a lot of that was sucked out of me when Cassie was born, because I didn't want her to suffer from being on that treadmill and trying to be perfect and trying to keep up. And once I let that go and had a reason to let it go, man, was it easy to let go. I just let it go. And now if I mess up, I remind myself that is the human side of me, and I have to honor that. I'm human as a spirit having a human experience, and I have to honor that side of myself, that imperfect, fumbly bumbly, human part of myself. So that's that's the angle I come from it at. And that's how I got there. It was not an easy, switcheroo, but my daughter pulled me out of that in a big way, because I just didn't want her to have to go through that like I did. But that's,
that makes sense.
That well, but yeah.
My son changed things for me too.
Yeah.
And you two are Mormons, and we two were Catholics. Right?
It's the same, isn't it? When I was in the Mormon Church, the only opposite of Mormon church was Catholic.
Yeah.
That's what they always talked about, was the Catholic Church is this and Catholic Church is that. That was the opposite. You were the opposite.
So I think we should thumb wrestle. Come on, get him up, come on.
Kim brought up a really, really nice reminder one more time. You see, when we were like, what my experience in the church, I did not feel human. I felt like I had to be a super child or a super young woman or a super, this and that. And it was not obtainable, for one.
Right.
Because of my humanness. And God forbid, literally, if I told somebody that I was human, they would have been shocked. You know what I mean? They've been shocked. I too went through cleaning of the house, making sure the children, I had a routine, children, bath, night, food, everything. I had to make sure that all of my boxes were ticked. But I didn't raise my children in the church, but the church was still in me. I refused to raise my children in the church. I thought, I'm not going to do that to them.
Right.
I can't place them in so much danger like I was. There's a whole, like I said, there's a whole other podcast, and so much danger like I was. I wouldn't do that to my daughter. I wouldn't do that to my son. There was just a lot there, but I still had the Mormon cogwheel in my head.
Yeah.
And it took a long time throughout my whole 20s just to get out of it.
Yeah.
Anyways, but if the Mormon Church is working for you, and somebody who is in church right now, if it's working for you, we're not talking to you.
Right.
You have figured it out. You know what I mean? I couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
And like you said, I don't have any ill will against the church. I feel like it served it served a purpose for a time for me. And now I'm kind of, other things resonate with me more. I have family members still in the church.
Yep.
They love the church and it works for them. And I think it, like you said, Sheila, if you're in it and it works for you, that's great. And that's where you are. And that's
Right.
great. Yeah.
I doubt that anybody from the Mormon Church, active Mormon Church, is watching this, though.
My sister is. She watches everything I do.
It would be in secret.
Right.
In the closet watching YouTube. What?
You'd be surprised, right? I get a lot of people mentoring sessions from Utah. And I've talked to a lot of women who have struggled in the church and are trying to figure things out, and I'm like, come to the light. No.
We draw that energy in, right? They see us. They don't know why they see us, but yes, exactly. Come to the light. We have chocolate chip cookies. You know?
That would get me there. Chocolate chip cookies would absolutely get me there.
Here's the thing, what love can do, right? Because I love my sisters, and one of my sisters she was the organizer of the retreat we just did. She organized everything. She's in the Mormon Church. She took the classes that were there. She was very open-minded, and so I think that, you know, even if you do have friends that are in the Catholic Church or the Mormon Church, you know, you don't just say, well, they're Mormon and who cares about that. No, you can still learn from each other. You can still give each other something that is positive, and that is, even if it's just the relationship that the two of you have, that's still, it's something to build on, rather than just, you know, and you know, believe me, there are those that I would say, you know, I can't deal with that. I'm not involved enough to deal with that. But I think you can build relationships with people and learn from one another. And I think that, you know, I feel like the world is changing in that way. It's inevitable that the internet, I mean, it connects all of us all over the world. The church does not have the control it did 100 years ago or 200 years ago.
Yeah, and in the past 20 years, Christian churches have lost 54% of their congregations.
The purity culture is almost
54%.
non-existent.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was just south here, Canton. There was a metaphysical center that used to have their center in the choir loft of a Catholic church. And the reason they had the choir loft is because the church couldn't stay open without renting out that space. And what happened was as the congregation downstairs dwindled and it got down to those core fanatical believers, suddenly upstairs started getting graffiti written on the walls, you know, Satan worshipers, antichrists, all this stuff, right? Well, now you drive past that church and it's boarded up, and the metaphysical center has a big building down the road. It's twice the size of the church. They're bringing in everybody from all different faiths. It's the way of things to come. You know, people are leaning into love, but we live in a society that is based upon Christian beliefs. I mean, you walk down the road and you sneeze, and somebody says, "God bless you." Well, that's a holdover from the medieval church believing that when you sneezed, you opened your soul to the devil, and the original quote was, "May God bless you and the devil miss you." So we have all these things that are just incorporated into our society that are Christian based, and it really comes down to recognizing what it is we're saying and what we're actually subconsciously programmed to believe. And when we start to just live loving and we start to just, you know, smile at that person and give the feeling of it, you don't need all of the doctrines and the dogmas and the ceremonies and the methods and the modalities, because the simple act of just giving that feeling changes the entire environment.
I agree. You know, I had to sit through 3 solid sacrament meetings to heal from the Mormon Church. I took years and 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 years. And one day I just said, I just got to go back and face it. I have to go back and face this. And because it was just not healing. And so I sat through 3 sacrament meetings in the back, And I cried through each and every one of them because they were childhood memories. They were, I know the whole routine, this, that, and the other. And I cried. And finally, the third one, and I walked out. And I'm like, okay, I can now put that at peace, because I didn't walk in there with hatred and meanness and anger. I walked in there with an acceptance level, like, I don't belong here, but these people who want to be here are here because they want to be here. And I had to literally switch that in my head. Like, I always thought that they're being trained wrong, I had to literally sit through that and come out and walk away and go, okay, all right. It's all right. It's over now. It's done. It's over. So yeah, things like that happen with the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of that kind of, accepting all of your story, right? Because because even if you have a bad divorce, or you have, an illness or something, you have to like integrate it into your own your whole experience, and honor it, because that's how you became who you are. So of course it has meaning, and I think that was a really smart thing to do, Sheila, is to go in and fully integrate it, and then you could, within that, kind of let it go and just let it be a part of your story that's, that you've kind of moved on from.
That is true, because I was literally born and raised in the church. My father blessed me as a baby up with the priesthood, everybody there, baby in the sky. I was literally born and raised in it, and it was my identity.
Yeah.
And I had to separate myself. And so when I started separating myself from that identity, I hated that part of my identity.
Uh-huh.
Therefore, there was a lot of problems doing that to myself.
Right.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. I had to embrace it versus kept on rejecting it. And you're right.
Right. I think that was really smart. I think, and ironically, I'm sure that Spirit led you to to know that you had to face it. Yeah.
Oh, Kim, I had no idea why I was sitting in a Mormon church. And I'm like, I'm sober. I don't do nothing. And I'm sitting, I'm like, how did I get here? And I just went in. I was dressed for it. Apparently, I left my house with a skirt on. But you know what I mean? I had to cover up my tattoo because you can't show that. But anyhow, I was sitting, and I literally had, it was like the bizarrest things happened. We all know that. We all have stories of the bizarrest things. And I'm sitting in my car in a parking lot in a Mormon church just in time for sacrament. I'm like, okay, I'll go in. All right, here we go. Right? Just obeying that inner being saying, yes, Sheila, this is how you're going to heal. This is where it is. This is where you have to come back to. I'm like, fine.
It's very, very brave and powerful. I think that's it's kind of like, if somebody's in an accident and they return to the scene of the accident, it's to fully understand it and to embrace it as just part of your story. I think I think that was really smart.
That's huge, great advice for anybody that's listening right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I in my life, I've met a lot of Mormons who've left the Mormon Church, and they all have had struggle with the leaving of the church, and some of the struggles are internal, but a lot of times the church itself tries to stop them and tell them that people can't even hang out with them anymore because they're not Mormons and all kinds of things of that nature. And I'm like, wow, that's, in the Catholic thing, we just have the massive guilt all the time, right? So, right, we're born in sin, and then we go through the whole process, right? And so, but to me, it's like, I think any organized religion, God is too big or too beautiful to be encompassed by any one school of thought. But I think you can find love in all of it, and it's a matter of recognizing that you need to step back and look at all of them, and find the loving parts. I always tell people, when you read any of these books, put on your love goggles first and let the fearful stuff fall away, because the love is where the God is.
Well, here's something for you, John. One of my absolute favorite sayings that I utilize in my life all the time, as Jesus said it, was that you can do all that I have done and even better things.
Even better things, yep.
Meaning we were equal to this man.
Yep, and that's exactly what he taught. He found his divinity, and he was showing us ours. He never wanted to be deified. He never wanted to be a savior or a Christ figure. In fact, one of my regression memories is him turning down the Essenes when they asked him to step up to become Messiah King.
Right.
And he never wanted any of that. He was just showing us our potential. Who, ye are gods. You can ask a mountain to move and it'll move. Nothing's impossible for you. It was never about coming to me for the solutions like the churches will tell you.
Yeah.
So
It's one of my absolute favorite staples of life.
yeah. One of my favorites is a Buddha quote. When you realize how perfect everything is, you'll tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. That's one of my favorites.
Only thing that's perfect. Yeah.
Well, Marcie, I just went before we're coming. I mean, no, we're not to the time yet, but I just wanted, before it runs out, I did want to say thank you so much I was slow on the uptake. I'm like, what is this? I don't understand. Come on, what's happening? So I'm sorry for my
It was probably me, because sometimes I'm not clear.
Thank you so much for putting this together. I think it was an inspired idea. I think it's needed right now. I think we all wonder, what can we do? What can we do? The world's, it's in an uproar for one reason or another all the time, it seems, and we're all wondering, what can we do? What can we do? And you gave us something we could do today, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I mean, I admire you all so very much. I watch all of your shows all the time. And even though I might not pop in there and say that I'm there, I do watch you guys all the time. And I love everything that you do. You've been a wonderful inspiration to me. And you are all just so full of love. And that's what really drew me to you all, is the love. And that's really all that we have to give each other. And it's the most beautiful gift we can give to each other. And it's so simple. And I just thank you all so much for being here for this. It means the world to me. Thank you so very much, all of you, for all of what you do. And especially for being here. And we still have 5 minutes, but I got to tell you, I am beat.
I've only been here for an hour, and I can feel it. But Dave, John.
Yes.
I want to keep on calling you Davis.
My last name's Davis.
I want to get personal. Are you like married, girlfriend?
No, I'm known as Triple X because I have 3 of them.
Three marriages?
3 X's, yep. That's why they call me Triple X.
If you're closer, I would go out on a date with you.
Oh,
It's true.
well, you should have stayed in Rehoboth.
I know. I could not make it back. Oh my gosh.
Next time.
Yeah, I will. Well, I will be making another trip, probably maybe next year, the year after that, back, because my husband is buried in the Arlington Cemetery.
Oh.
And that was the reason why I was there.
He was a man of service then.
Yes, he died active duty.
Wow, I did 6 USO tours, and I saw what the servicemen and women do every day firsthand. And for someone to, you want to talk about act of love and love wave, people who volunteer to go anywhere in the world to defend us, that's just an act of love in my mind. And when I did the 6 tours, I was on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. I was on stage when they literally brought in the wounded, and half my audience left to go give blood. So I honor your husband.
Yeah, my husband was first boots on the ground when it started. They were the first boots on the ground. They're the ones that got there, and he's Army. I'm Army wife, so my speech is not exactly the same as him. But he said that they built the tents, they built this, they started putting things up, erecting things, and that was not his MO. They just, you know what I mean? That's what he did.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was over there, they sent me out on Easter Sunday through the Anbar province, and I went to every Marine base in the Anbar province. But earlier in the day, we were at the Army bases. And the Army bases were all enclosed with nice facilities and all this stuff. And the further out we got, it was like in the morning, they actually were at a dining facility and they had a life-size Christ made out of Crisco. like the fat Crisco, right? The Crisco Christ. And and then as we got further and further out, everyone was having steak and lobster and turkeys and the last base we played on that day was 4 miles from the Syrian border, and they were having hamburgers on the grill and snack pack. And I mean, it was just like you watched as the supply lines dwindled as you went further and out. But yeah. Those soldiers they were doing amazing work over there, and just selflessly. It was beautiful.
Yeah, they really were.
So.
Yeah, it's a kind of bravery too that I almost can't understand. It's like it really is amazing to think of these.
That's why they go in early, because they don't have that worry yet.
But even joining with the idea something even could happen, I think it just is it's just a different kind of, I don't know. I really do marvel at it. So, but I'm so sorry, Sheila. I didn't know that about your husband. I didn't know
I lost my husband due to the war in 2010. So that's a whole nother podcast. And if anybody wants to know the whole story, in the membership. There's a video in my membership that explains a lot about that. But yeah.
Well, guys, it's time to wrap this up, and thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate it more than you can ever realize. And if I can ever return the favor, you let me know.
We'll get you.
As soon as I find some time. I think I have 5 minutes in January.
Yeah. Amen.
And thank you for everybody in the audience for showing up as well. We really appreciate you being here and sharing love with us. So thank you all so very much.
Yeah. And once again, let me one last time say thank you, Marcie. This has been tremendous.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You started the wave that is spreading like crazy right now. Thank you so much.
I'm all about the love. Spread the love. Thank you all so much. And if I can ever do anything for any of you, please just let me know. I'd be happy to do it. And maybe we can make this a yearly thing and go around the world a little more. Maybe
we just start adding more people.
Yeah.
and then Dave could do it. And then Dave could do it in his time zone.
There we go.
We would all be sleeping.
Right.
We're drinking the coffee.
Okay.
Thank you all so much, and thank you to our audience for being here. I appreciate it more than you could ever know. Thank you all.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Be safe.
Yes. And be safe. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
It was lovely.
How do I shut this off? Here we go.
There's a thing that says
end stream. I just found it.
There you go.
Bye, everybody. Love you guys.
Bye. Mwah. I'm out.